Good evening, everyone. We are going to talk about block 9 tonight, our last block in the challenge. Wait a couple seconds to see if people jump on before I start talking. My son went back to school today. Last week was spring break. So it's like nice to have the house a little less people, but I kind of missed him. All right. Some people are starting to jump on. Say hi so I can make sure I can see comments. We're talking about block 9 tonight. Tonight is Monday at 8:23. So if you're watching this later and I'm not answering your questions, it's because it's no longer live. So if you guys can say hi so I can make sure I can see comments. Okay, cool. Hi, Debbie. Hi, Jean. Yay. I think there's a little bit of lag from when you type in your comment to when I get it, so that might be the case too. So, hi, Mary. Okay, cool. So we got some people on here, and I can see comments. So tonight we're talking about block 9. Yay, last block. I'm doing great, Jeanette. How are you doing? Today was kind of rainy. Not too bad. You know, it's been raining a lot. I guess our precipitation amount has been way higher than it has in the past few years so far since, like, I don't know, my husband was telling me. But it seems like it rains every day here. So block 9. You guys excited to put your quilts together? I see a lot of you guys out there already doing it, which is cool. On Thursday, you will be getting a quilt assembly, basically how to finish your quilt PDF, because I know there's a lot of first-time quilters in the group, or just new to quilting, and you need instructions. So we're going to give you those instructions so you don't have to worry about, like, oh no, I have these blocks, what am I going to do with them? But block 9 is our last block. You know, the construction was pretty simple. We got some half square triangles around some squares, and so pretty similar to construction of last week. Do them in the rows, match up your points. If you guys have questions throughout the video, just shout them out. Yay, Sharon, you're almost caught up. I know I usually say, you know, these go together quickly, but I guess if you're new, they might take a while. By quickly, I mean like an hour. Hour's quick for me. More than an hour, I'm like, oh, this block's taking forever. So I know that newer people, it might be taking longer. Just go slow. You know, if you go slow, then you're less likely to have to rip out your seams. Oh, Peggy, you're from Washington also. Awesome. First quilt you've ever made. That's awesome. I'm really excited to see all the first timers in here. So that's really cool. So I don't know if there's probably not many questions. I know probably people are wondering about squaring up your blocks. So if you used a scant seam, all your blocks should be 16.5. If you go through and measure all your blocks, hopefully if you used a consistent seam through all of them, all your blocks will measure the same. All of them measure, say, 16 inches or 16.25, or, you know, we're hoping that they all match up. When I go to square up my blocks, you want to, you know, you may have pressed them right after you made them. I would go and press them all again so they're nice and crisp and flat, because you might measure it and say, oh, this one might seem a little bit smaller, but it's actually because your seams are puffed up a little and you want to flatten it again to show the true size. Ooh, cool, Debbie. This is your second quilt and first time with half square triangles. Yeah, my second quilt was a half square triangle too. It's like, it's the easy triangle, I feel, because, like, there's the, what is the isosceles triangle? And that's the one that's kind of like you need to use starch. Half square triangles, those are the easy triangle. Yes. I guess most patterns about the scant, most patterns just assume quilters are going to know to use a scant. And for people that are new to quilting, you know, you don't know about that. When I first started quilting, I just, you know, used my regular presser foot, which your regular presser foot that comes with your machine typically isn't a 1/4 inch. It's just slightly a little bit bigger than a 1/4 inch. So whenever I'd write out my patterns for myself, I would just go, okay, I know I want my quilt to be a little bit smaller than 42 inches because it's a baby quilt. I'll plan it out to be 42 inches, but I know it's probably going to end up like 40 inches or 41 inches because every time so this is a little more than a 1/4 inch, and this is the scant 1/4 inch. If you just get a 1/4 inch foot, you'll get a scant with it. Mine gives me a scant 1/4 inch, which basically is a 1/4 inch that includes the width of your thread and your width of your needle. For when you open it up, you know, you got that little bit of fold it accounts for. So if you see, like I did this tester, the seam on the top is the scant and the seam below is just a tiny bit bigger, and that's my presser foot. So if you're using your presser foot, your blocks are not going to be 16.5 inches. They'll be slightly smaller. They could be 16 or 16.25. We just want to make sure they're all the same size. Awesome, Cindy. Yeah, I know a lot of people are just jumping into the group too. Like over the last week, we've gotten almost 1,000 new members, and people are either just starting right now or they're saving all the PDFs for later. I know that after the challenge, the full-length pattern will be available to all of you guys for free. So it'll have the cover photo and all the other tools like the full cutting list and the diagram, the color, where you can color in what you want to do your quilt as. So if people are like, hey, I want to make this quilt some other time, you can download the full length pattern and have it in your library. Ooh, awesome, Rachel. This is your first half square triangle quilt. I love half square triangles. They're so versatile, right? Oh, that's so awesome. I can't read your whole message. So you've been sewing for 30 years. So I'm 35, and I started sewing when I was about 12, I think, on my mom's machine. And so that's almost math. A lot. 20, almost 25 years. Or 20? 25. 20. It's late, sorry. So anyways, so it's really cool. Like, half square triangles are the easy triangle. People might think it's a pain having to trim them all down, but if you want your points to line up, trimming them down is the best way. I know my first half square triangle quilt, I didn't trim them down at all. I just, you know, made them, and they're kind of wonky, and I tried sewing all the wonky ones together, so that quilt, none of the points line up. I should show it to you guys next week. Next Monday, I'm going to do another live video for how to put the whole quilt together. So I'll show you the backing, how to do the backing fabric, how to put your binding on, and I'll show you a couple different quilting techniques. But yeah, getting back to the squaring up your block. Okay, so you want to make sure to press all your blocks again, so they're nice and flat. And then what I do is I put it on my mat, and I measured them all, and they were all 16.5 inches. But, you know, sometimes when you sew, fabric stretches. So little bits will, like, be longer in certain areas or bow out a little bit. So I just went around with my ruler and kind of, you know, just went around with it, lining it up on the edges, and kind of tripped off all those little bowing out areas just so I'd have a nice straight line. A lot of people were saying that they bought square 16.5 inch rulers. I only have a 12.5. I should get a 16.5 because I like bigger blocks. You have always used my cutting mat to square up blocks. That's accurate for me. You want to make sure you leave a 1/4 inch on the edges so that when you sew your sashing on, you're not going to lose your point. But I think it's better to have a square block and lose a couple points than have, say, my block is way smaller up here than it is down here. One reason that could be happening is you're not going all the way to your seam. Like, say you're sewing this seam and then at the end this is slightly smaller than a 1/4 inch. And if you're noticing, like, say like this is coming down a little further, I don't know why that's happening, look and see if that is truly a 1/4 inch at the ends. The ends are the important part because that's where you're going to match it up to your sashing, and then once you match your sashings up, you're going to want to match your blocks up so they all go together and they look even. Sorry, I'm not reading. Yay, Karen! So happy you love this challenge. I love it too. I have to learn to measure better for the house. Nat. So what I've been using to trim up my half square triangles, basically you take your ruler. Most acrylic see-through rulers will have a diagonal line on them. This one, I think I only got for like $4, or people were saying they could get one for $4. That's what it was. I got mine in a pack that came with my 12.5 inch. You line your center seam up on that diagonal line and you trim around it. There's also a diagonal line on this long one too, and you want to line those up to get those perfectly square. So we're gonna, you want all your blocks to be the same size. So some people were having the problem of one of my blocks is 15 inches, all the rest are 16 inches. One solution I would say is you could put a border around that one block. Like, so it is like a 1/2 inch border around the whole block. You'd have to add a 1/4 inch. So you could even just say, so an inch strip on each side and then trim it down so it's the same size as the rest of your blocks. That way, you know, your block lays nicely. And just kind of say that, like put it in the center and say that block in the center was supposed to be having a border, and then kind of be like a focal point. Whoa, you're in Dubai? That's awesome, Betty. So you'll finish when you get in Texas. That's awesome. All of yours vary by a 1/2 inch. So it could be the case that, you know, you may need to try, before measuring them, press them all flat. I would go with the smaller ones, either trim down so they're all the same size as the smallest one, or so I kind of already, since I want to have a finished quilt by next Monday, I already started putting together my Heather Bailey challenge quilt. So if they're all ending up different sizes, you could do a double sashing. And I did that to do an example with this one. Basically, I did my background, I did one sashing around it, 2-inch strips. You know, I did a 2.5 by 16.5, or however big your block is. Do that around your blocks, all of them. And then trim them all down to be the same size. That way you're not losing any of your points, and the sashing is just changing a little bit. And then after you do that first sashing, trim them all down so they're the same size, and then you could do a second sashing around those. See how I did that? So all my blocks have 2 sashings. So this one goes all the way around the block, and then I did one that goes in between the blocks. So you could make this basically block with the sashing, all of them be the same size. That way your quilt is even, and it's not like, oh, up here the top is thinner than at the bottom. You want it to be all uniform. Ooh, watching from Guam. What time is it in Guam? It's 8:37 p.m. here in Washington State. Sophia. Yay, Nat. I'm glad you think it's a good starter quilt. I wasn't, like, the intention wasn't for it to be a, like, first-time quilter, but in all my patterns, I'm trying to make them quick and easy. And so in that, making them quick and easy, I want all skill levels to be able to give it a try, you know? And if, you know, that's why I would try to do the diagrams and everything so that, you know, it would be easier. So I'm glad people thinks that helps out. Yay, accomplished my goal then. Mission accomplished. So yeah, so just, we got to figure out ways to make all of our blocks the same. So if you have to put an extra sashing around it, and I'm going to go into that a little more detail next week with the quilt assembly video. I'm going to show a couple different sashing options, because I'm going to try to have both my quilt tops done, and then have this Heather Bailey one I want to have quilted and everything, so that I can show you the binding on that one. Because I know, you know, we got all these blocks done, but we still have a lot of work ahead of us. It's not, you know, okay, now I have this pile of blocks, what do I do with them? We want to have a quilt that we can put on our couch, and we can tell everybody, hey, I made that with my 2 hands. It's exciting. So, thinking ahead, if you guys have any questions, just shout them out, too. Yay, Carolyn. I'm so happy you love all the blocks. I know some people didn't care for block 7, but then a lot of people started using them as corner blocks. 4 of them around it to make theirs larger. So you're saying I want mine to be a little bit longer. Some people are using 7, making them the corner block, and then it kind of frames it in, which is cool. I think you guys are such smart ladies and gentlemen out there, you know, rearranging your blocks. I love all your fabric options you're doing. It's so cool seeing all the different, you know, one quilt, but in all these different fabrics. It's so cool. So cool. Yay, Jane. That makes me happy. I'm so glad, you know, it can build your confidence. The whole goal for National Quilters Circle, they wanted to do this challenge to bring people back to their sewing machines, you know, and get that sewing bug and quilting bug back in people. And, you know, it's a really good, relaxing hobby. You know, it de-stresses people. If you are kind of picky and worried about your points lining up and you're a new timer, don't worry about it. You know, we want this to be fun, and don't worry so much about everything lining up, and, you know, it's going to be beautiful. You're going to use it, and you won't worry. Once it's all quilted up and crinkly, you won't notice little tiny points that aren't perfect. You know, because see, this is a cotton batting, and so it gets crinkly, and you don't notice points as much. My points aren't perfect. Hey, right there, yeah? Like that one got a little chopped off a little. It doesn't look bad when it's all crinkly, you know? So you want to think about your batting options. You're going to have to go buy some batting. Some people aren't doing any batting. You could do, if you want a lightweight quilt, you could do flannel for the inside. If you wash your fabric, you want to wash the flannel and your backing fabric. If you didn't wash your front fabric, don't wash your backing fabric. If you buy cotton batting, don't wash it. It will fall apart when it agitates in the wash machine. That's a bad idea. So your quilt will shrink up 3%. So that's it could be like a couple inches, which isn't a big deal. It just shrinks up a little bit. Oh, cool, Shirley. You did the friendship star stashing. I saw a lot of people doing that. That is really cool. I saw the cornerstones. So I think this one I'm going to do cornerstones to show everybody cornerstones. Just basic stashing techniques for first timers. You know, you don't want to have to, like, I saw somebody did all half square triangles. It looks gorgeous, but that had to take a long time. No, Joanne, all my points are not perfect. I wish. But I don't, like, if I seam rip something one time and I sew it back together and it's not perfect, I'm like, oh well. I'm not gonna seam rip a ton. I don't get a lot of time to sew, maybe 1-2 hours sometimes. Will you tell us next week how to do the quilt sandwich? This has been a fun. Yes, Brenda, that will be on Thursday. You'll get a PDF. And it has step-by-step instructions how to put your quilt together. And then also on next Monday, I will actually take the PDF and I will go step-by-step, try to explain all the steps if people don't understand my directions. Because I want you guys to put the quilt together and snuggle on the couch and watch a show. Basically, Sharon, I think if you wanted to make a half square triangle without trimming it at all, which I don't suggest, basically you take your finished size and add, like, so say this one's 4.5 inches, right? And this one started out as 5 2/4, 5 1/4, right? You could do 4 7/8, and that will be minimal to no trimming, but it might not be perfectly square. I'm sure you could Google or go on Pinterest to find, like, search half square triangle chart, and you could find a chart out there, because, like, you can search on Pinterest or Google for no waste flying geese chart. Flying geese chart, flying geese tutorials, half square triangle tutorials. With the internet nowadays, it's like a wealth of information. So, oh, cool, Shelly, you're gonna make 3 more. I know, I was debating if I wanted to make mine a little longer, but instead, with this double stashing, it actually, see how I did the solid and then I did stashing, that actually makes my quilt, I think it was 68 inches, 68.5 inches wide and long, so I'm just going to go with that. I'm not going to do extra blocks since I'm doing 2 quilts right now and trying to finish my new pattern. This is an awesome group, Jan. I agree. I love this group too. And just so you all know that National Quilters Circle plans on keeping the group open. Yay! So you guys won't lose your friends and you'll be able to start the next challenge with all your friends. Right now, the group is almost at 17,000. That's crazy. I know a lot of you guys might not be doing this challenge since you just jumped on, but go for it if you want, you know. I tried to make it so they were easy and you could put them together easy so that, you know, snowy day quilt sampler. So if you're snowed in, you could put it together in a day or two. If a block takes about an hour, that's 9 hours plus a lot more. So maybe you could do the blocks in a day. Oh, wow, Joanne, you did 16 blocks, 4 of 7. Cool. I can't wait to see that. I love seeing all these, like, all the 9 blocks together. They're so pretty. I love all your guys' color combinations. So cool. Okay, so I guess we'll talk a little bit more about preparing for next week. Get your batting. You want your batting to be at least 4 inches taller and longer than your quilt top. I just always get like a king size batting and I make a couple throw size quilts out of it, so that's what I do just because I'm always making quilts. So then I know I'm going to have excess on the sides. Also, you want your backing fabric to be at least 4 inches wider or longer. At least. You can do more than that if you feel comfortable. Because when you're sewing this, you're quilting it, it's going to flatten even more. And if you did your backing and batting right up to that edge, it might like go further than you thought it was going to. And then you don't have enough for your batting and backing, that's happened to me when I was a first time quilter. I just didn't put enough, and then when I quilted I was like, oh, that moved a little more than I thought it was going to, and so had to do a little repair there. But so yeah, batting, backing fabric, binding fabric. So I know a lot of people didn't buy those right away. Next week those amounts will be listed and directions how to make those in the PDF. Also, in the fabric requirements, it shows how much backing fabric you need and how much binding fabric you need. If you decided to make your quilt top larger, you may need more backing fabric than that suggests. Also with binding fabric, you may need more. So keep that in mind when you're purchasing that you can actually find calculators online. If you Google it, quilt binding calculator or quilt backing calculator, you can find how much you need. Basically, you add the width of your quilt. If your quilt isn't longer than, let's see, like, say it's not longer than 80 inches, you only really need 2 sections. So, or if it's a little less than 80, say you went with if it's like 79, you have the 2 sections will be 42 plus 42 is 84 minus ½ inch, so 83.5. It'll be 83.5. So you need to know the width. And so basically you take the width of your quilt, which is the example one is 56.5 plus 4 inches gives you 60.5 inches. Times that by 2, and that will be 2 sections that you'll take you'll have, say this is 60.5 times 2 would be 121. You would take that, this is the length of it, right? You would divide that by 36. 36 is how many inches are in a yard. So you would divide that by 36, and that would basically give you 3.5 yards. I put in the fabric requirements a little bit more just to give you a buffer. So I put 3 3/4. So you take that, you got your 121 inches of fabric, you cut that down the center, salvage to salvage, and then you'll take your 2 salvages and sew them together. So you'll have a 60.5 by 83.5, if that makes sense. The diagrams, I did diagrams in the PDF. So that might be a little more clearer if you're wanting to piece your back. This one, since I'm trying to get this done by Friday, I may just go to Target and get a flat sheet that is at least 4 inches wider and longer than it, just because I want a fast, cheap backing, which some quilters don't like that because it is a higher thread count. It'll wear down your needle faster. But the nice thing about a sheet is you don't have to piece it at all. You can also buy backing fabric that is 108 inches wide, which you don't have to piece, which is cool. I know Joann's Fabrics has a few. Your local quilt shop will probably have some, and also like fabric.com or one of your favorite online fabric retailers will have 108 inch wide backing fabric. So then you don't have to piece it too, which is really cool. What is binding fabric? So Shannon, when you finish your quilt, your binding fabric is this fabric on the edge. So you'll have raw edges once you quilt it all together, and you'll want to take this binding and wrap it around your raw edges And so I sew it to the front, wrap it to the back, and I hand sew it to the back. I like to do a ladder stitch because it's kind of like seamless and you can't see my thread. I think I used navy thread. You want to go with a thread that's the same color as your binding. So when you're buying your binding fabric, also get thread to match that. You know, does that make sense? I've also seen backing fabric in 90 inches. Yeah, Michelle, I've also seen backing fabric. I know Art Gallery Fabrics has a few that's 56 inches wide or 58 inches wide, but I don't know if that'll be quite large enough. It might be like barely wide enough. Fabric.com has them. Art Gallery Fabric that's 50, maybe it's 58 or 59 inches wide. So you can just go to like fabric.com, but that takes about, like I ordered some batting from fabric.com last week, I think it was, and I'll be getting it this week. So it takes about a week for some retailers to ship it to you. Yeah, so what I'm going to do with this quilt is I'm going to quilt it up, this one, quilt it up, and then I'll put the binding all the way up to like the edge, just so I can show you guys. I did little diagrams for it in my PDF, but I want to go to the corner and kind of show you how I folded it around the corner to get my mintered corner nice and triangular. So I'll show you that next week. Also, if you're quilting, some people did quilt as you go. I've never done quilt as you go, but I would still assume you need some sort of binding on that. So you're gonna have to do your binding. If you all you have is a presser foot, that will work in quilting. I used to always use my presser foot, but then I would have to like adjust my pins halfway through when you baste it. So I would use pins. You can get the curved pin, or if you use a stick pin. I know some people use, ooh, mine's bent. That's because I don't take my pins out when I sew. Don't tell anyone. You take your pin, and then there's like pin mores, which stick on the end, because I never did that, and I used to get scratched up arms when I was younger, and I was like new at quilting. But you get these, and you don't get scratched up arms, hey? Hey, really smart, right? Or you can use spray-based, which I forgot it in my sewing room. I like spray-based just because I just started using it. One, it's fast. Pinning is like, takes a long time, right? So spray-based is a lot faster. It keeps my layers secure. I'll show that to you guys next week. Try the quilts as you go. I'm going to have to try that, Joanne. I've never tried the quilts as you go. It sounds very interesting. Maybe when I decide to do my king-size bed quilt, I'll do the quilt as you go, because my throat is only about that big on my machine, so I'm able to shove this through it, and I made my son a twin size quilt, but I'm not sure about a king size, so maybe I'll try the quilt as you go with the king size. So yeah, so when you're quilting, you can use the flat presser foot. Then recently, so I'm a self-taught quilter. I know, hi, I'm Andrea. I designed the quilt, if you guys didn't know, because I know a lot of people are new to the group. Hi, I'm Andrea. Anyways, I was a self-taught quilter, so I had always just used my presser foot, and I never knew there was a thing called a walking foot. This walking foot clips on right here. You screw it onto your machine, and it has these dog feeds, even dog feed foot, basically, where it pulls your top fabric and your bottom fabric through your machine at the same time. So I used to get a lot of bunching on the back of my quilts. I don't get that anymore. It actually goes through my machine a lot faster, which is cool. I just bought a free motion quilting foot. So you could get one at your local sewing machine store, maybe your local Joann's, depending on what type of machine you have. It came with 3 different types of feet. I'm not going to do that on one of these quilts just because they're big quilts. I might try it on a baby quilt first. Haven't done free motion yet. I'm excited to try that, but not quite yet. Are the curved safety pins a better idea? For sure then. I like them. If you have allergies, you probably don't want to use spray-based. But if you're just using stick pins and you're pushing it through your machine, they might scrape your arm up if you don't have little stoppers on the ends. I know a lot of people use the little stoppers on the ends are fine with it. Someone even posted in the group to get a flip-flop and cut little squares off your flip-flop and you can poke them into the end of these. But I like these. I got just a pack of Joann's of the curved basting pins in their quilting notion section. That or spray based. Typically I've been using the spray based lately, but I have some of these on hand if I run out. The spray based does get your floor sticky, so I use it on my tile floor and I mop up my tile floor when I'm done. Some people say they've done it in their garage. If it's nice out, you could do it on a deck outside if it's nice and clean. Or some people do it on their tabletop and like pin it, secure it to the sides of your table when you're basting. Thank you, Dawn. That's so sweet of you. Yes, allergies, so you can't do the spray base, Shannon. So yeah, I would get these curved pins. I just keep mine in a little bag. Some people have like bowls with magnets on the bottoms, but yeah, they're good. I like them. And you would want to pin every 3 to 4 inches, basically like maybe the width of your hand. Pin it where you don't think you'll be sewing. Like, so if you're going to do straight line sewing, which I do with my walking foot attachment, that helps me. Also, some people like to use the painter's tape to mark out your lines. You could also use a marker to mark out your lines. I would be careful though, because some people have done this and then, oh, they wash it and the marks don't come out. So you want to make sure it is water soluble and you've used it before and washed it out fine. I've never done the lines with a marker. I've just always used my guide. I just got this nifty tool. So once you baste it all, you can take this, it's called a Hera marker, H-E-R-A marker, and you press the layers. Let's see. Yeah, kind of see. See that? You press the layers and it kind of leaves a little indent. See that indent right there? So you can use your ruler and press a bunch of indents after you've basted it, and those could be your marking lines for quilting. Do you spray based and still use pins or just based? Michelle, I just use the spray based. I think it's called, I got mine from Joanne Fabrics. It's called June Taylor. I like that actually better than the 505. I use the 505. It's a smaller can. I don't know if I wasn't using it correctly. It just didn't seem as sticky. The June Taylor seems sticky, so my layers stuck together really good. But then it washes out when you wash it in the machine. Some people do spray-based and pin just so they feel more secure that their sandwich isn't going to fall apart. Yeah. So if you guys have any more questions, let me know. Let me know. I'm trying to think of anything you might need to know before the next video. Yeah. Just think of what you could use as guides if you want straight lines. I was going to share next week, going to try to do a couple different quilting techniques just to show you what you could do. Some people, if you have iron to one side or the other, stitching in the ditch is okay. I personally don't like stitching in the ditch because sometimes I'm not sewing that straight and it doesn't get totally in the ditch and it kind of comes out of the ditch, and that really bugs me. So instead of stitching in the ditch, I prefer like lining this edge. See this edge right up to here. So it's like about a 1/4 inch from the ditch. I'm not sure what that calls, basically a 1/4 inch from your seam, which that's a good easy way to quilt it. You want to read your batting. Batting will tell you on the back of the bag or the roll how far apart you need to quilt it. One time I bought one that said it needs to be quilted at least 6 or 4 inches apart. If you don't do that, your quilt will like fall apart inside. I like to get ones that are bigger, like this cotton I think is 10 inches apart. Even though I quilt it like 1 inch apart, I like to get the, so I'm not worried it's going to fall apart, So sashing is between the squares like borders. Yes, Shannon. So this quilt, sashing is, you can't even really see it because it's the same color, but this strip right here is called the sashing. So that'll go around each one of your blocks. And then your binding is this color. So in the fabric requirements, color D, it says this includes 1 yard of sashing. So if you've decided to make extra blocks, you're going to need more sashing. That may not be enough. Yes, Jody. She asked if I tape the back down when I spray base. Yes, I tape the backing fabric down to the ground. I smooth out my batting, and then I smooth out the top of my quilt, and then just to make sure it all fits right, and then I'll take the top off. I don't know why I do that, but just to make sure it all fits right. And then I'll take half of, some people do a third, pull back a third of your batting, spray it, flatten it out, and then go to the other side, do a third, spray it, flatten it down, and do a third. Sometimes, depending on the size of the quilt, I'll do like a baby quilt. I'll fold up half of the quilt, spray it, smooth it out. I basically, I smooth it like this, like you're swimming. Smooth it kind of like from the center out, when I'm doing the spray based. And it's sticky, but it's not so sticky that, say you didn't get it smooth enough, you can still pull it back up and re-smooth it out. So, some people are like, is it like glue? It's kind of like glue, but it's not that sticky. So if you don't get it totally smooth, you can pull it up a little bit. Even once I do the whole thing. So I smooth out the batting like that, and then I'll lay the top out on it, fold the top out back either a third or a half, spray on the batting, and then lay down my top. And then it's like, some people say let it dry like that, and then your sandwich is more secure. Also, it isn't as sticky on your needle if you let it dry like that. Say, do it at night, and then the next morning untape it and pull it up from the ground. Yeah, so let's see. So after you do that, yeah, just smooth it out. And then, since I'm in a rush usually, and when I baste it, I want to quilt it right after. So what I do, I will take it over to my table. Since I do it on the ground, I'll take it over to my table. I'll flip it over to the back and make sure the back is totally smooth. Even though I know I taped it down taut, which is not stretching it, but, tight, a little tight. Go to the back, lay it on my table, and just kind of take my hands and rub it so it's like, if I see any bubbles in it or anything, I kind of smooth out those bubbles. So I know the back and the front are both all nice and smooth. And then before I quilt it, I'll roll it up halfway to the center, and I'll start from the center and use one of my long seams as a guide, and put this up a 1/4 inch. Use my long seam as a guide, and then go an inch from that, inch or 5/8. That's what I do. More like a post-it note, but a little stickier. Yes, Kimberly, kind of like that. It's a little bit stickier than a sticky note, but about that much. So, you will need, if you overspray the quilt, you'll need to mop up your floor. But it's not a big deal. Floor needs a little bit of mopping every once in a while, right? So, it doesn't hurt too much. I can just take a wet washcloth and I wipe it up. So, if you guys have any more questions, I'm trying to think. I want you guys to be prepared for next week. So, I'm trying to think if there's anything else you need to know. That don't leave the group. We're staying open. I told you guys there's almost 17,000 in the group. Bailey from the National Quilters Circle shared with me that 24,500 people have actually joined, and that was last Tuesday. She shared that with me. So that's really cool. You guys are going to have a lot of people joining in on the next challenge with you. So we're just going to keep this group open, and someone else will take over after this challenge is done, since I'm not going to be the designer on the next challenge. So if you guys like my patterns and you want to follow me, I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook. So I'll post my links up in the description of this video when I'm done. My Facebook is, you can just search in the Facebook thing, Happy Cloud Creations, or on Instagram, Happy Cloud Creations, if you like my patterns. Will there be another challenge? Well, Susan, I was answering your question, but I didn't even read your question. So yeah, I'm not, they haven't given me a specific date that they're doing another, hair's all funky, doing another challenge, but they want to keep the group open because they do plan on doing more challenges. I know that they do have things in the future for you, so stick around, and they'll have some fun stuff for you. Woohoo, Canada, Shirley, awesome. I'm glad you're enjoying the block challenge. Yeah, so if you guys have any questions, I'm really excited to see all your guys' finished quilts. There's a lot of beautiful blocks out there. It's so cool seeing them being finished up, and, you know, it's cool that people are giving them as gifts. And I recommend, if you are wanting to give it as a gift, wash it before you give it to the person, because I know somebody in the group posted that they washed their quilt and some of the seams popped. Like, if you didn't sew a perfect 1/4 inch, or, you know, maybe part of your seam was a little bit smaller. It's never happened to me, but I've heard it happen to other people's where your seam might pop a little. You want to wash it and just inspect it if you're deciding to give that as a gift, just so that you can fix anything that happens like that. Just patch it up or sew it down a little bit. Let's see. Oh, I know I got the question about if you can sell this quilt from my pattern, and yes, I do give you guys permission to sell the physical quilt that you've made. I know I posted, the National Quilters Circle had in their newsletter something about copyrights, which was kind of informational for me, because, like, I don't, like, send my patterns in to the copyright office, but I did write it, so it's basically copywritten. So I do give you guys permission to sell quilts with this pattern in small quantities, meaning, like, I don't want, like, JCPenney's or Walmart to mass produce these, because that's kind of like stealing my intellectual property. But you guys can sell them in small quantities. I'm okay with that. That's really cool. It's just, you know, common courtesy to note me as the designer of the quilt, because I, you know, it takes time to design a quilt, and it's just kind of common courtesy to mention that. Or if you're like, I know some people were entering them into fairs or stuff like that. I know the fair will usually tell you you need to either let them know if it's a derivative of someone's pattern or if it was someone's pattern. So you want to make sure to do that so that you don't get disqualified. But yeah, just, I guess, you know, it's okay to sell the quilt. I don't want anyone, you know, please refrain from copying the pattern and selling it as your own. That, you know, wouldn't be cool. But other than that, sew and sell. I don't care. Thank you. Yay, Joan, I'm so happy you love the challenge. You're welcome, you're welcome, you're welcome. Thank you all of you, for joining the challenge. If it wasn't for you guys, I'd be sitting here talking to myself, and that'd be weird. So I'm really excited that so many people joined the challenge. It's really cool. And I want to thank the National Quilters Circle for all their hard work at, you know, getting this many people together. If I was doing this on my own, I know I wouldn't have gotten this many people to do a quilt along with me. I'm pretty much a beginner pattern writer. This is my 4th pattern I wrote, so it's really cool. Thank you to the National Quilters Circle. They were able to get 24,000 people to sign up for this quilt challenge, which was really amazing. I was expecting a couple hundred people, and, you know, that's an amazing number for me. A worldwide challenge, really cool. And all that work they're doing on the blog post, getting you guys the information you need, and adminning this group. It's a lot of work, and I really appreciate the opportunity they gave me. It's really cool. Thank you, Deborah. I'm so happy you're loving this challenge. I'm loving it too. So I guess it's like 9:12, so I probably should let you guys go. If there's any questions you guys have, Thursday, you know, look for your email Thursday for the how to finish your quilt PDF and blog post. They might, you know, give little hints for the new surprise they have, I guess. We'll see what's coming next. And then a little bit after the blog post gets emailed out, the link to the PDF will be in the pinned post in the group, which is the very first post in the group. If you're on a mobile device, you have to click the little pin that says view pinned post. I know some people are like, I can't find it. And then also it will be in the file section later on Thursday too. If you're posting your pictures over on Instagram, use this hashtag. I know a lot of people, I see their blocks and they're not using this hashtag. National Quilters Circle looks at this hashtag, NQC Quilt Challenge. I know some people were doing NCQ Quilt Block Challenge, but this is the official hashtag. So yeah, exciting. So yeah, on Thursday, if you guys have any questions, you can, what's it called? You can tag me in your question, or you can wait for Monday's video, which I'm going to go step by step over putting your quilt together. And I will be trying to read as many questions as I can. So hopefully you guys don't have too many questions and the directions are pretty self-explanatory. But if not, I will do a video for you guys. Will these blocks still be available now that you are at the end of the challenge? I just signed up a few days ago. Jody, yes. They're in the file section. They're also in the blog post. They're not going to delete their blog post, so they'll be in there forever. Also, at the end of the challenge, the full length pattern will be available to you, which has the cover photo basically and the whole thing. So, has, you know, the coloring page and everything like that. And the full cutting instructions for the whole pattern. So, you know, and that'll be free. So, no worries. Kimberly, I'm not sure why you're not getting your emails. You can actually email National Quilters Circle. I'm not an employee of theirs, so I can't look at their system. But you can email them on their Facebook page, their customer service. Like if you go to their Facebook page and it says About Us, they have an email address and they have a phone number. You can contact them and they can figure out why you're not getting the emails. It could be going to your spam. It could be going to promotions, or maybe it wasn't entered into their system correctly. Maybe it was just a glitch. So I would email them. So yeah, you guys have any more questions? I can't think of anything. So I'm really excited. Yay! See all your quilts. I know, you know, the directions will come out Thursday, but I'm sure not all of them will be finished on Friday. It takes a while. Just hand binding a quilt takes at least 5 hours, you know, because I watch TV and I get sidetracked by toddlers. But it's a nice, relaxing thing to do when you're watching the show, you know. Do you need a walking foot to quilt? You don't need one. I've been quilting for like ever with just my presser foot. But just recently, last year, I bought a walking foot, and it helps a lot. You don't need one, though. Like, say, I don't want to go spend $40 on a walking foot. Just use your presser foot. It will work. It'll work. You know, make do with what you have if you don't want to go spend $40 on this. I can totally understand. It took me so long to break down and buy this, and then finally I bought my free motion quilting foot just because I'm like, ooh, $50. I could buy fabric, or a quilting foot. So, you know, yeah, regular presser foot will work for you. Is there anything else before I say goodnight? Can't think of anything. You know, so press out your quilt top too. Like, so if you folded it up after you were done, press it out before you lay it down on your batting, just so it's all nice and crisp and flat before you try quilting it. Cecilia, depends on what kind of quilt. For a walking foot, well, and how you want to quilt it. Because if you want to quilt straight line quilting, yeah, walking foot is awesome. If you want to do free motion, like how they do, you know, stipple or designs like that, free motion quilting foot would be better. You know, I like the straight line quilting. It's quick and easy. Top to bottom, top to bottom. Really quick and easy. Couple hours probably, like, if I don't get interrupted, maybe only in an hour. So yeah. So I'm excited. So, yeah, if you ever guys have questions, just tag me. I try to get back to you guys as soon as possible, but, you know, this challenge is worldwide, so I might be sleeping when you're asking the question. And thank you for all you helpful quilters in the group that are answering people's questions, which helps me out a lot too. So thank you. So I'm going to say goodnight, I guess. And I will see you guys next Monday, all right? Good night.